I cannot wait to talk about this episode. It's going to be all encompassing everything that has to do with the bridal industry, like what all we like, all the positives. We'll go over all the positives first.
Okay.
And then we will go all over all the negatives and just kind of
Start with the good.
Yes, exactly. So I'll let you start off.
All right.
Just kind of give your take on what all you like,
Yeah.
and then I'll jump in.
Well, in no specific order, I think I'll start with I like the interaction with the brides. I would say like I'm a social person, but it's always great to meet someone new and like hear their story and how they are to this point where they're getting married. Something else that I really enjoy that's positive for me is educating the bride. And
Ooh, in what way?
Yeah, just letting her know, because it's kind of like you get proposed and then what's next. So I like to be there to just give little tips that I've learned on my journey in this industry.
Right.
So something else too is I like being that fairy godmother, someone like an unofficial bridesmaid, kind of helping them out through the whole process all the way up to the wedding and then sending them off to like Cinderella.
Oh, say like La La Land?
Yeah. And then another one is the transformation, just seeing the final like head to toe look and them just being so happy and comfortable in their gown.
That one's always a favorite, for sure. That's that moment where it's just like, oh.
Yeah. That I feel like the pictures and everything, it just brings it all together. I mean, something else that I enjoy too is the process. And so that leading up to the transformation, I feel is everything.
So what about what specifically about like the transformation leading up to that? Like, what's that
the
moment?
process. So it's like the challenge at the beginning when you first get the dress, and then all the way to the transformation where we've completed all the alterations. And when you first see a bride and they are still figuring out their entire look with hair, makeup, jewelry, accessories, and then you see it all come together. And I feel like, is that my daughter? Walking down the aisle, it's just a great feeling overall. Yeah. And of course, the sewing. I love sewing.
Yeah. I was like, but you look so young. You wouldn't have a daughter that age.
I know.
Ashley's
Exactly.
like, if I had a daughter.
Yes.
Yeah. So then we'll go over what the positives are for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely relate to lots of those things that you said. I mean, there are so many things that, that
I know.
we
I feel like I could have kept going and going. But
yeah. So we'll just kind of like sum it up. Just kind of like the things that we remember the most, or, just kind of like the things that really relate to us. So for me personally, I put that kind of like you were mentioning, like the fairy godmother is like playing dress up. I obviously love playing dress up with the brides because it's just fun. It's like the whole thing about like grabbing the train and doing that
Oh, I love that moment too.
Yeah, we call it like fluffing the train, and then you set it down and it's like, oh, there's like, or like angels singing in the back, or more like, oh, yeah. So, and then what I specifically love, because I'm going to be coming into this like from a different standpoint once we get into the negatives, but like as far as like the positive, like it's all good. I love the intricate gowns because I love the challenge. I like dismantling things, taking things apart, and like trying to figure how to like put it all back together again. Like for me, that's like super fun, and I really, really enjoy that. So it's like, bring it. You got a kind of alteration, or a kind of gown that you're like, can this be done? Is this possible? And I'm like, oh, let me show you.
Challenge accepted.
Exactly. Right. So the other thing I really like about this is that, like, even though we are a part of like the fashion industry, bridal's considered fashion, of course, but it's not like of the actual like ready to wear, like, fashion industry from that scope. I love the fact that it's like, it's just a total different breed. And so we're just literally dealing with one thing, as opposed to if you're just like in the typical fashion industry, all of that can get very like mixed up. And it's like, when you're talking about garments, it's like, especially like layering garments, right? It's like you have tops and pants and skirts and jackets and all these accessories and all this other stuff. And so that's why I think I really enjoyed becoming like an alterations person when I first got started. I was a tailor, at Nordstrom. So for me, when I learned that I liked taking the garments apart and putting them all back together and everything, that's when it was really fun for me. And I was like, I had thought about it some time ago, and I was like, no wonder why I didn't really, it didn't really work out for me that when I was going to fashion school, I couldn't really build a collection.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I like to make like these one type of pieces, whatever you call them.
Yeah.
Like a showpiece, right?
Right.
But then I was like, I can't really make like a collection out of that, just for like everyday wear or something, right? So, so for me, that's why I like being part, the bridal being, it's still part of fashion, but it's different, right?
Exactly.
And so
they're separate industries, I would say.
Yeah. But obviously the next thing is I love making brides' dreams come true, because that's one person that I was able to help, that I made a difference in their life. And that's something they will always remember.
Yeah, I love that feeling.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that's just like overwhelming and happy at the same time. And you're just like, like I live for bridal. My purpose, on this planet, God put me on this planet, for bridal or whatever.
That's our purpose.
Like, So that's obviously very fun, especially when you receive a card that's like, thank you for making my dreams happen. And I'm like, I'm really, I get really girly when it comes to bridal. But
of course.
But I grew up with two older brothers that watched wrestling and listened to heavy metal. And so I was always like rough and tough and tomboyish and all that. But like once I got into bridal, I was like, my girly side super comes out. It's so funny. And then the last thing that I like a lot is just you meet lots of interesting people. And it's just really, really cool. It's not only just the bride herself. Sometimes her people, that she brings is just like, it's so cool to meet interesting people, and you just learn a lot, and then sometimes it helps you see things in a different perspective. And so
I like that too.
That's really fun. So those are all my positives. Now let's talk about the nitty gritty. Let's get into the negatives.
Okay. So what I would say is something negative is the lack of knowledge that I see a lot of the time. And similar to what I said with the positive, but it's just that when a bride, gets proposed to, they don't know what's next. But in the industry that I'm in, that I see a bride, several brides a day, I have to just be very repetitive with educating them, or just giving them knowledge of what to do, even to the point where it's like, oh, you need shoes. Something very simple.
They're like, wait a minute, shoes for what?
Exactly. And then with that as well is the industry is very emotional, so it can be very stressful just with all the emotions coming from everywhere, from sewing, from the dress, from the bride.
Like family members and stuff, pressure because of deadlines.
And it's finances. Just all together. The number one thing that coincides with the stress is if a bride has a bad experience at the beginning before alterations.
So like you mean shopping for her gown?
Right. Or if she gets her dress and something's wrong, if she went to a different seamstress first and there was still something else wrong, so then it kind of falls on me to kind of bring that bride back into better spirits and happier to want to complete her wedding experience.
It actually falls on you twice.
Yeah.
Let me elaborate. Not only because you're a master fitter, but because you manage the entire business operations.
Exactly, yes.
So it falls on you twice.
That is true. I know. Didn't even think of it overall, but yes, I would say probably that's the number one negative for me. But to continue, another thing is that just when a bride picks a dress and there's limitations on the dress from that doesn't connect with her vision of her dress.
Which is super common.
Right. And that's very challenging. But we try to make it work. And then lastly, just the wear and tear, the physical labor as well of the whole alteration process.
Elaborate on that because
Yes, I mean, starting from very minimal, like just the little pokes from the pins of just sewing to just when I do a fitting, I am very active. So I'm up and down, just pinning your dress from head to toe. And that's kind of like a workout. I'd say a high intensity workout.
It is.
But it's
we're doing those thigh squats.
Right, yeah. And so sometimes it's just my adrenaline and I'm going and going and going. So then finally at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, like I was sweating, I'm sore, or I have little cuts and bruises. But it's all part of the process. So overall, yeah, those are my negative.
Okay. Yeah, so I can definitely relate to some of those as well. But the ones that I have written down for like the negative of what I don't like about this industry, well, the first and foremost, I have a love-hate relationship with this industry. I think we kind of both do. So it's like we love to hate it because of all the complaints and all the little nitpicky stuff, but then we hate to love it because like there's been times, I mean, I'll just share with you guys, like there's been times where like you and I, we've literally like just sat and cried.
Right.
Like, and together. We're just like, because it's so emotionally draining, but we'll show up again the next day because it's like an addiction.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know what it is about bridal. It's like the sparkle or just, you know, again, the whole making dreams come true or whatever
and the
it is.
Challenges and not knowing what to expect.
All of that. So that's why it's like we love to hate it because we can complain because it's kind of like we can justify and validate all those things, but then we hate to love it because we keep showing up. And I'll elaborate more on that, but like breaking our body. So so when I founded the company, you know, I was a solopreneur, as they call it, right, for the entrepreneur. I basically did break my body. I was working 80 hours a week, and I did that for like 3 years straight. Yeah. There was a time that I was working for 3 months, so that was like about 12 weeks straight, and I did 100 hours every single week during that time, and that's when I broke, and I actually went to the emergency room. I woke up the next day, and you know how you just like kind of roll out of bed to go to the bathroom? Yeah. You know, I was like, okay, so let me just roll out of bed like normal. I got up and I was like, okay, it's another 18-hour day, no big deal. I heard a big pop in my neck. That was that was like really scary, but it didn't hurt. It was just really loud, and I was like, I've never heard that before. I felt it, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't painful or anything. But then when I tried to move again, I screamed. And it was just, you know, it was like it was super intense. So obviously, you know, my husband was sleeping next to me, so I had to like kind of like nudge him like, hey, and then he's like, what's wrong? And so he jumped out of bed, and then he tried to lift me up out of bed. And then I screamed again, and I said, call the paramedics. I couldn't move, so I was basically paralyzed. So it took me 4 years to go through that process, but I couldn't stop showing up because even after that, I didn't go to the doctor for like follow-ups for treatments because in my mind it was just like, it'll just go away. It'll just go away. Anyhow, that's elaborating on just a tidbit of what had happened to me, you know, building this company. And no matter how much pain I was in, and I still got lots more stories to talk about, but I just kept showing up. It didn't matter if I was in pain. It didn't matter if I was going through issues. It didn't matter if I was under medication. I would still show up and, like, you know, do all those things. And so I won't say what brides or, you know, who I was fitting at the time or doing what. I might have been, you know, like, you know, not in the best of shape. But, you know, I had to, at that point, like, fake it till I made it, you know, because I loved what I did, even though I was hiding behind, like, the pain was hiding behind my smile, I should say, right? And I was like, hey, you know, because I love, relate. Yeah. I hate to love it. That's why I was like, ugh, because it really damaged me. Yeah. And so, it's taken a long time to heal from that. So I'll never do that again. But once you build something, then you start figuring stuff out for the better. So that one was a long one, but that was the first one, the negative for me, the love-hate relationship. But the next one is I can't stand that they call us seamstresses, right? We've rebranded ourselves. You know, we are tailorettes. We're not typical seamstress, and there is a difference between a seamstress and a tailor. We're not really taken seriously, like out in the public or sometimes here in the business, right? People are like, you know, you're charging what for what, and at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, you can do some sewing, and it's like, oh, well, I have some curtains, and it's like, what are you talking about? Like, you know. We are bridal tailors. This is a very fine art. This is why I've built an entire academy around this concept, is because, you know, there's no standard in the industry. So I've had to develop techniques that cater to all those things that, you know, that make it the standard, you know, and it's a high standard because we deal with very fine garments and fabrics, and we deal with very fragile emotions, right? So, you know, there's a whole process and the whole system to it. And so, you know, well, back then when I was a solopreneur, you know, when people wouldn't take me seriously, I'm just like, it's just like, okay, you don't understand. I don't just do sewing. Yeah. I'm actually like a specialist, right? You know, so anyhow, that's kind of like the one thing about that part. The next thing is elaborating like from the curtains, right? Or about the curtains is people are always asking for alterations. They're like, oh, you do sewing? And I'm like, and I just kind of put my head down and I kind of like turn away and I'm like, yes. I'm like, yes, I do sewing. But, you know, that's the one thing. The most common thing is, can you shorten my hem on my pants?
Right. Yes.
And I'm just like, no, like
even people coming to the company, like they'll see bridal on the door and still be like, can you just shorten my pants?
Or they'll be like, oh, my groom has a suit, can he make an appointment too?
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're like, no, like it doesn't work that way.
This is specialized.
Yeah. So I think we've already let people know out there that it's brides and brides only. And that's what you see all over our online reviews. Right. I mean, yeah, the groom's in the picture, but like you mostly see just the bride. And even on our door, it says Bridal Tailoring. And I know that can get confusing sometimes too, because they think it's everything about bridal, when bridal just really refers to the bride. Yeah. So that's the thing about people asking for alterations. It's always, can you hem my pants? Everywhere I go, even my neighbor. Yeah. I forgot my neighbor in my apartment. He was like, it's funny because this guy, I have to tell you about this guy. He's got like all these big meaty muscles. He's the owner of a gym, and it's probably somewhere around here. And so he's got this big, huge truck, you know, and I have to park by him all the time, and I'm like trying to struggle in and out of the car. But even my neighbor, he's like, you do sewing? Because, you know, there was a few years ago when I still had the logo on my car at that time, know, the decals of our company name and everything. And so he's like, I have this patch, and I'm like, here it comes. and he's a cool guy, but, you know, I was like, you know, going to be courteous, just listen to him. And so he's like, well, I have a leather jacket, you know, could you sew it on the leather jacket? And I'm like, and leather's different because if you poke a hole in it, that's it. There's no going back, you know, and I've worked with leather in the past too. So, but I'm like, I said, well, if it's just a patch, I said, you know, yeah, I'm sure I could, you know, help you out with that. I said, you know, but we do wedding gowns only. So, and then he actually never followed up with me about sewing that on. So I was like, maybe he got the message, but I was respectful and kind and just was like, you know, so, in the end, I was just kind of like, you know, yeah, let me know, just because he's my neighbor and stuff like that. So I'm not advertising to anybody if you need a pant hem or a patch sewn on your leather jacket.
All your neighbors coming to you now.
Right. So I had another neighbor at another apartment. She came to me, you know, when I still had the decals on my car, she came to me asking for a hem alteration on her jeans. And I'm like, I did learn how to do that, where you remove the original hem and put it back on so that it looks like it was never altered. But I was like, no, I had to completely decline that. The next thing the negative thing that I don't like about like working in this industry is it's usually brides that bring in a person, and that person is like, they're really nitpicky, looking at everything. And hey, we have our standards too. We get picky about the dress too, because even the bride's like, oh, it's fine. And we're like, no, let us finish, right? But sometimes the brides will bring somebody, it's like, I always call it Aunt Susie. There's always an Aunt Susie that knows how to do sewing. It's like, but is it wedding gown sewing? Like, you know, are you working with dresses? Do you work with fine fabrics? Do you work with lace? So that's the one thing is I've always been in lots of fittings that were like a little bit unpleasant, not necessarily because of the bride herself, but because of the person that she brought. I did have a mother one time that she kept questioning me, you know, the hem was... it just needed to be a little bit curved so a little bit shortened more on the side because it was slightly uneven. It was a tulle hem and it was a big ball gown and she had so many layers. And so, you know, that's why we do those follow-up fittings so that we can see on the edge. And so I was like, yeah, no problem. Let it just, you know, like fix the edge a little bit, you know, just kind of curve it a little bit more. And she was just started going off saying, you know, and she had a really hard accent, so they were from a different country, and she was saying, you know, my family back at home, we do sewing and we do all of this. And I said, oh, you work on wedding gowns? I said, that's amazing. That's awesome. I said, tell me more. And then comes to find out they don't work on wedding gowns. They do lots of other stuff, you know, tailoring and, you know, making stuff. Because I was like, well, then... And then I asked her, I was like, oh, you know, because I was like, basically it was kind of like, why did you come here when you could have, like, you know, done the alteration, you know, for your daughter? But it's until I got the information that, you know, I was like, they don't do wedding gowns or none of that stuff. And I was like, somebody always knows how to sew, but then, you know.
Very minor.
Yes. Very minor. They don't really understand. I had another bride also that her mom she was actually probably the worst of them all. The bride was super cool about it, and she had more of like a laid back attitude. But the mom, she spoke to me in Spanish. So I was talking to her the whole time, and she was like, you're not professional. You don't know how to do this right. And she's like, this is not right. And so she didn't understand our process because I said, we don't cut off seam allowance, especially on an illusion top, you know, because we raise the shoulders. And I said, we wait till the end and make sure it's good. And luckily we didn't cut it because I still remember to this day that we had to let the shoulders out because the bride, she was really, really big busted. And so we had to make slight adjustments. And that's normal. Usually when you take up the straps, sometimes they're a little bit snug or the bride thinks she wants it tighter, but then she's like, you know what? No, loosen it up a bit. So all those little things, you know, we have that process in place, but this mom just kept like railing on me. Like I couldn't tell you how many times she just kept saying, you're not professional. You're not professional. You're not professional. Yeah, I treated her very kindly, you know, very courteous. I spoke to her very professionally in the sense that I didn't make it personal. So I tried to, you know, just tried her to meet her halfway. And then I started asking her, because once she started saying, oh, well, we do sewing and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, my whole family and we do this, you know, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember all what the conversation was, but I asked her, I was like, you know what, this is great. I said, so you're a seamstress yourself, right? And then she's like, well, yes, I am. Me. And then she was telling me all the generations and even her sisters and, you know, husbands and like cousins. And like it just kept going. I was like, this is great. This is amazing, right? But they actually made custom men's suits.
Wow, that's completely different.
I'm like, that's so different because I remember I was trying to, you know, like connect with her and meet her halfway, and it was just like, you know, what all do you do and everything. And then I was like, okay, so you're like on a total different planet. Like what you see, you don't really understand the way that we're doing things and stuff. So
because when I have a seamstress come in or someone that says they know how to sew, I get excited because I'm like, oh, now I can talk technical and tell you how we're gonna do all of this.
We're bridal nerds, so we love to nerd out on that. So that's just one other thing is that there's always an Aunt Susie that knows how to sew, and then they're going to tell you how to do it, and then you do it, and then it backfires because we're trying to accommodate, you know, or we have to just give them a hard no, and then it's just maybe a negative or unpleasant experience or however, because not only are we trying to make, you know, our brides happy, you know, we want their people to be happy and have a wonderful experience as well. So, because everybody's sharing the moment. So, but the last thing for me,
there's more.
Yes, I know. I went on a tangent or tantrum, whatever they call it, for that one. The last thing is that this industry has no information about everything in bridal, kind of how you were saying earlier. It's kind of like you only get one shot to tie the knot, as I always say. So like brides don't have a basis for comparison. And so hence that's why we've birthed this this podcast, right?
Of course.
So is because we need to put all this information out there so that brides can learn. It's like you're going to do it once and probably never do it again, but you want it to be right. Most brides want it perfect. And so it's like we feel that we need to share everything that's going on in-house as well as sometimes what we go through personally, just so we can give, you perspective on, if you have to meet with the seamstress. But I mean, technically the journey all starts once the ring goes on the finger. It's like, where am I going to get married? Where am I going to get my gown? And then, the third thing, I need a seamstress, right? Yeah. So that's just kind of how it goes. So, but basically those were all of our positives and negatives so now you know a little bit more about how we see things. You're going to come into it, Ashley, like, from the fitter and management standpoint. And then I come into it from like starting the company and then to like getting into like the media and doing all the stuff and building the company, building the academy, the framework for all of that. So I think this is very interesting so that we could share. So great topic. So that way now our brides know and they can be informed.